Recently, I was replying to a tweet on how to import Tailwinds into a project, and someone showed me a screenshot of a misconfigured Angular project with Tailwinds on it. Well, I replied there, and there are two ways to do it, the long way and the short way. Today I will showcase both cases, and you pick what suits you better. So let's start. Okay, so I have already opened Visual Studio Code, so let's switch to the scene that I have prepared for that. So I go into my projects. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install the client of Angular. I'm gonna say here -g Angular CLI. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just going to create one of the projects as a clean Angular project and load it in VSCode. This is ng new Angular without Tailwinds. It's long, okay? Nope. So what I'm doing right now is for the long section, I'm creating an Angular application. And on top of that, I'm gonna create a daisyui landing page, which uses Tailwind. So we know what is the process to make sure that our project has Tailwind on it, and what is the process that we have to use in order to set up this long step. The part that is gonna show up later on, the short way, is gonna be very easy if you use NX framework. Okay, so we create our project. So I'm gonna say here cd Angular without Tailwinds long. I'm gonna say here code here, and the first part that I want to ensure is that we can start this project and migrate later. First, I want to ensure that you guys can understand the concept without using NX. That is the long part. So I'm gonna say here npm start, and we are gonna run just a regular Angular project. Nothing pre-configured out of the box, it's just Angular. And now we have our page in localhost 4200. This is hello, this is Angular without Tailwinds. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into daisyui. daisyui uses Tailwinds to generate all its user interface. So what we're going to do is to take one of the components, the drawer component, in order to put it in our Angular project as a code, and we will see that that's not going it's not going to work because we didn't install Tailwinds. So let's go and bring the drawer component. The intention is to mimic this kind of behavior as we see here. And what I'm going to do is just to copy this HTML, and then let's go into our Angular project. If we go into our application, we have a component that we're going to use, and what I'm going to do is just to take this down. And that pretty much is just gonna create this like this. So we have the HTML. If we inspect, we're gonna see that it contains all the elements, and so far so good. We have all the classes that Tailwinds has in the background. Is gonna use Tailwinds. So how do we install Tailwinds in the long way? Let's start to configure Tailwinds for our Angular project. And the first thing we're gonna do is to install the dependency. So I'm going to open a new terminal over here. And now I'm going to start to add the dependencies as we need it. So we're going to say here npm install d, and we're going to install 3 packages. The first one is Tailwinds CSS. The second is PostCSS, and the third is the autoprefixer. Prefixer. Now that we have the dependencies installed, we see our package.json, we're gonna see Tailwinds, PostCSS, and autoprefixer. Now let's start to set up the project, and we're gonna say here npx TailwindCSS init. And we have a tailwinds config.js. So what we're gonna do next is to try to understand what we are going to do here. So we are gonna use content theme and plugins, and first thing that we're gonna do is to set up this file. This is the style.scss. So the first thing we're gonna do is to import our CSS library. Import TailwindCSS /base. Oh well, let me duplicate this two times. One is base, another is components, and one is utilities. So far, so good. So just follow up. We are in the src folder. We have style.scss. And now we have to start to run a process. So I'm going to say here, npm start. I know we already have a start here. And let's see what happened with our content. So of course, now we see something different. The font was not the font that we had before, but now is the font of Tailwinds. Now what we need to do is to ensure that the daisyui works here. So I need to install the dependency as well. So what I'm gonna have to do here is in the terminal, I'm gonna say here npm i-d daisyui. The next step we're gonna do is just to include the daisyui inside of Tailwinds. So for this, we need to open our Tailwinds config, and inside of projects, we're gonna import the plugin for daisyui. I'm gonna say here, require daisyui. And if everything works fine, now it picks up because we are using this inside of our plugins. And if everything works fine, let's see if we complete something here. I don't think it's gonna still run it. I think I'm missing something, and I think I had to stop this. So what we need to do is to configure our content. So I'm gonna say here, we are gonna listen to changes in our content to ensure that we can include those changes. So I'm gonna say here src. I'm gonna say here, let's use this blob pattern. So we include everything that ends in HTML and TS. With this, this should be good enough to serve our application with daisyui. Now let's see if now the drawer is there. Okay, so far so good. So we have our project configured properly, and we added the dependencies as we needed. So this is the long part. If you use NX framework, it's gonna be even way easier. You don't need to even touch stuff. I'm gonna set up a separate project in which we're gonna install NX framework with Angular on it, and we are gonna use NX console in order for us to help us with the setup of Tailwinds and add to the configuration of the system properly the style sheet for our project. So I'm going to say here npx create-nx-workspace latest, and we're going to set up a standalone Angular project. I'm going to say here Angular without Tailwinds short. I'm going to say here this is an Angular project that is a standalone application. I'm going to use ESBuild. We're going to use SSS. I don't need to do SSR. I'll say no. For the moment, no end-to-end. And I will skip for now the NX Cloud. Okay, so now we are installing the dependencies, and we're going to start to run that project. While this is happening, let's fix the drawer. The dark theme is nice, but it would be nicer if we can just tell the theme that it should be a light theme. So we go inside of our Tailwinds config, and in theme, we're gonna say here light. To tell daisyui to take that light theme, we had to create an option here that says daisyui. I'm gonna say here theme. I'm gonna say here light. It's themes. Okay, there you go. So if we type properly the configuration for the CUI themes, it's gonna pick it up, and then we have a light theme. So let's go back over our site generation. So right now we just configure our project in NX. So I'm gonna say here cd Angular the short version. I'm gonna say here code. And let's see what is different and how can we pre-configure this faster. So we are going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy this to imitate the behavior that we have here. We're going to stop the server here. Let's stop this so we can be able to focus in the other project. I'm going to say here src app, and I have this boilerplate Angular with Tailwinds and a router model. So I'm going to say is I'm just going to go into this component, and take down this template, a very long template. Let's serve first before we modify anything else. I'm going to say here nx-serve. I'm going to say nx-serve. By default, because I'm using only one project, this is the standalone Angular project, this is going to run the Angular in serve in development mode. And there you go. So if I open here and I refresh this, I see the NX welcoming screen. So let's start to proceed to change all of this. So now that I have this component, let's take this down and let's press Ctrl V. There you go. So we have our drawer here. If I go over here, it shows like it usually does. Now, how can I add Tailwinds inside of my Angular NX project? So the first thing that we're gonna see is if you have NX console in Visual Studio, I'm gonna click on generate. Once I click on generate, I'm gonna say Tailwinds, and there is an option of a generator that is gonna configure my project to receive Tailwinds. So I click this one here, and it's gonna ask me what is the project where I need to add TailwindCSS, and I pick up my project. Then I'm gonna see a dry run. It's gonna say that it's gonna update the package.json. It's gonna create a Tailwinds config, and it's gonna update my style.scss. So I click on generate, pretty much, and that's it. Now that we have set up Tailwinds, and we see this configuration, how it is doing our project right now. So if I go here and refresh, there are still that we have to do. We still didn't finish the configuration as well, and we may need to stop our project. So I'm going to say here, nx-serve, and in theory, it should take the changes for our new style sheet. If it doesn't include the things on the style sheet, as we say here, we have to modify this. Now that we have our configuration ready, and Tailwinds is installed in our system, we're going to verify the component that we modified right here. And okay, it seems that we have our component ready, and we have just to add Tailwinds to it. So what we do here is to do something similar to what we did before. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to open a new terminal. I'm going to say here npm i-d daisyui. And now we can just include this in our configuration. You have the option just to create this here const daisyui is equals to require daisyui. And let's add over here plugins daisyui. And let's add the option for the theme to be the light theme. Themes is gonna be light. So if everything works fine, I'm gonna see a refresh on the project, which now you see here daisyui is here. And let's see what happened. Okay, now we have our drawer ready. As you can see, you can either use your traditional Angular setup and add Tailwinds manually, or using NX to let your Angular project to use an NX generator to add Tailwinds. For me, it works better doing the setup on NX because thanks to NX console, I pretty much not worry about setup and configuration. The only thing I need to be aware is to set up daisyui to make my drawer component work. I hope this short video helps you to configure your project easily. If you find this video useful, please like and subscribe to my channel. My name is Eric Rodriguez, and I will see you in the next video.